Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. She Smiles at the Future. I've decided to share a book with you guys that I'm going to read for you guys on my channel. I've done this several times, read some books. This book is called Project Sunlight. I read it years ago and I remember really enjoying it. So I'm reading it again with the ladies at my church. We have like a little book club that we do. And I figured that I would just, as I'm reading it for my little book club, I figured I would share with you guys. So I hope you enjoy. The back of the book, share that with you before I start, says, I am Jared, citizen of the universe. Member of the celestial penman, I wish to record one person's reaction to the sin environment. At random, I chose this young mother of two. She's divorced, hurt, bitter, and is searching for the prince, though she doesn't know it yet. I call her Sunlight. Weeks pass, fall shivers into winter, and Sunlight, with her new friend Sybil, has been studying the teachings of the prince. The more they learned, the more excited they became. Beyond this world of tragedy and hate is a hidden splendor, a realm of peace and glory. Behind the fabric of time and space is a universe of majestic beings that view our planet with unfathomable love. They wait for us. They lead us to the light. Thousands of lives have been transformed by this unforgettable story, a story that opens new windows on the relentless love of God. June Strong is the widely acclaimed author of Journal of a Happy Woman, Mindy, Song of Eve, A Warm and Welcome Place, and A Little Journey, along with other books. So this is written by a woman named June Strong. Okay, so that was the back of the book. I am Jared, citizen of the universe, member of the celestial penman. I decided yesterday that I shall concentrate my study upon the first person to round the corner of Ridge and Genesee in the city of Rochester after 6 p.m. today. That moment even now approaches, and I am filled with anticipation. This residential street is not busy at the moment, as most of the working class have already made their way home. The clock on the Midtown Bank says 5:56. I fasten my eyes upon the designated corner. Leaves swirl about the buildings in a brisk fall wind. They remind me that it must be very frightening to live on a planet where sooner or later everything dies. A boy races around the corner, tennis racket in hand, but it is only 5:59. I am almost sorry. He's a fine-looking lad. Now, right now, the very next person, it is 6:02. Soon it will be dark and few will venture out, for the city streets of the planet Earth are not safe at night. But wait, a small figure rounds the corner. Her belted coat whipping in the wind, a young woman, or maybe not so young, 30-ish, I'd say. Funny, I never thought of studying a woman. They seem rather complex creatures. She, quick in her movement, is now backlighted with the late October sun's thin silver rays. Suddenly I know what I will call her, Sunlight. Of course, it is perfect. Project Sunlight by June Strong. For Nina. Text copyright 1980. Acknowledgements. A special thank you to Rob and Jackie, Kent and Billie Jean, Steph and Nina, who cared and counseled. Preface. This story upon these pages is a dramatization of the final events that await our planet and the young woman, Sunlight, simply a composite of us all. She represents our need of the prince, the need that we must recognize and meet before we can be whole. For the sake of the story, I've taken an occasional liberty. Let the reader remember that God alone knows the details, and they are not necessary to our salvation. The real issue is not how he will come or even when, but only whether or not you and I will be ready. We are made a spectacle unto the world and to angels and to men. 1 Corinthians 4:9. Okay, cast of characters. Jared is an angel. Sunlight, Meg, a young divorcee. Michael, Sunlight's friend from childhood. Jenny and Carol are Sunlight's children. Jim is Sunlight's former husband. Marie is Jim's present wife. Sybil is Sunlight's neighbor and friend. Bill is Sybil's husband. Joe, young pastor friend of Michael's. Jean is Joe's wife. Jason and Tammy are Joe and Jean's children. Dale, Ann, Roy, Ellen, and Mr. Laird are the members of Joe's congregation. Kelly, a work associate of Sunlight's, and the state police. Chapter 1. I am Jared, citizen of the universe, member of the celestial penman. At the moment, my gaze is riveted upon the corner of Ridge and Genesee streets in the city of Rochester, New York. While I am waiting, I will tell you why this particular spot on a tiny, faraway planet is so important to me. It is the sober assignment of the celestial penman to chronicle the activities of planet Earth. We have recorded wars and treaties of peace, floods, famines, revolutions, errors of prosperity, and atrocities beyond our sanctified imaginings. The church, of course, has been the focal point of our observations, the prince having invested in it far more than it can ever comprehend. An old man just rounded the corner, a shabby, soiled old man who long ago bruised the fragile, shimmering gift of life in grimy, careless hands. But the time is not yet. I am relieved. We, the celestial penmen, have been amazed at the short-sightedness of humans. They buzz about as if the earth were the center of the universe instead of just a speck in the cosmic dust. Mankind has little conception of its plight, though the King has spelled it out for them in the book they call the Bible. Many don't take it seriously, some don't believe it at all, and even those who profess to follow the prince often seem more excited about a new car or a church social than about his return. He does have a few committed ones, though, and they bring him such joy. Sometimes he's positively radiant watching at one here or there who's consistently his person. I used to feel a holy impatience with them all, for his sake. Their ingratitude seemed unpardonable. Such an arrogant race with so little to be arrogant about, but slowly over the centuries I've come to love them, especially since he went to live with them. Watching him out there, so much of them, sometimes I take a second glance to pick him out of the crowd. I began to see through his eyes. When I saw his weariness, I understood theirs. When the rebel pursued him relentlessly, I conceived the hopelessness of their condition. When he wept, I felt their tears. So it has been with a dawning compassion that I've recorded the activities of earthlings over the past 2,000 years. A couple comes into view, a handsome couple in the prime of their life. She is holding his arm and they are laughing. Now, what would I do with a couple when I am looking for only one? Fortunately, there are a few moments left. So let's get on with my explanation. Of late, I have grown weary of observing the masses, of transcribing their whimsical loyalties to one corrupt leader after another. My heart is bled for starving millions and trembled for the frolicking, indifferent rich. I have found myself with a persistent desire to concentrate upon individuals, though that is in the direct assignment of the recording angels, a completely separate segment of the celestial penman. So obsessed did I become with the idea that I sought permission from the king himself to concentrate my attention upon one earthling. I made it clear that I did not desire to record the individual's every thought and motive with the precise accuracy required for the judgment, but simply to compile a more general observation of one human's reaction to the sin environment. He granted me permission, and I am more excited than I've ever been in centuries, though I cannot decide just why. I've had many suggestions from my fellow penmen who graciously share my excitement. Some have urged I choose a newborn baby. Others recommend a youth of superior intelligence. I myself considered searching for a child of strong spiritual bent, but at last I decided that I did not want any such controls upon my experiment. I shall pick someone at random. In fact, I decided yesterday, in quotations, you will note that I am already using the time terminology of Earth, quotation closed. I'm sorry, not quotations, the parentheses. That I shall concentrate my study upon the first person to round the corner of Ridge and Genesee in the city of Rochester at 6 p.m. today. That moment even now approaches, and I am filled with anticipation, for my study shall center about this particular citizen of Earth, whoever it may be, as long as his life shall last. This residential street is not busy for the moment. Most of the working class have already made their way home. The clock on the Midtown Bank says 5:56. I fasten my eyes upon the designated corner. Leaves swirl about the building in a brisk fall wind. They remind me that it must be ever frightening to live on a planet where sooner or later everything dies. A boy races around the corner, tennis racket in hand, but it is only 5:59. I am almost sorry. He's a fine-looking lad. Now, right now, the very next person, it is 6:02. Soon it will be dark, and if you will venture out, for the city streets of planet Earth are not safe at night. But wait, a small figure rounds the corner, her belted coat whipping in the wind, a young woman. Or maybe not so young, 30-ish, I'd say. Funny, I'd never thought of studying a woman. They seem rather complex creatures. She is quick in her movement and is now backlighted with the late October sun's thin silver rays. Suddenly I know what I will call her, sunlight. Of course, it is perfect. I watch her hurry down the street, mount the steps of an apartment complex, and take an elevator to the 7th floor. She seems nervous in the elevator. I note as though she cannot tolerate delay. Finally, she enters an apartment on which the nameplate reads Meg Adams, and greets two small girls, one perhaps 9 or 10, the other about 6. For a moment, while she's hugging them, her face softens, but she tosses her coat onto the back of a chair, and her entire being is once more turned to the pace of city earthlings. The older child, Sunlight calls her Jennifer, has hamburgers already sizzling in an electric skillet, and the little one is setting the table. Sunlight puts a tossed salad together, and they sit down to eat. I eavesdrop shamelessly, for I wish to learn everything about my new project as quickly as possible. Okay, so now it's the way this book is written, it's like kind of like play form. So I will be saying the name and then what that person says. I'm going to read it like that. Okay. So, Sunlight, I worry about you using the electric fry pan, Jen. You must be super careful. Promise me. Jenny, I won't get burned, Mom. Don't forget, I'll be 10 in 2 weeks. Sunlight, promise me, Jen. Jenny, annoyed. Okay. I promise I'll be careful. I wish you'd tell Carol not to eat Twinkies before supper. See now, she's just picking at her food. Sunlight, your sister's right, Button. Absolutely no sweets before supper. Carol, tell her to get off my back. She's not my boss just because she's 3 years older. Jenny, oh yes, I am when Mom's not around. Sunlight, impatient now. That's enough, you two. After hassling customers at the store all day, I can't take your squabbling when I get home. My nerves are shot. Now shut up." The two girls eat quietly, silver and china fighting off the silence with businesslike sounds. Sunlight leaves her meal half eaten and moves on to the couch to watch the news on the television. Carol: "Daddy called to say he won't stop by for us on Saturday. He's going to be out of town." Sunlight: "Don't talk to me about your father. He hasn't been here for weeks. Why does he even bother to call with those phony excuses? Hey, baby, don't look like that. He's not worth a single tiny tear." They tidy the kitchen and watch Happy Days before Sunlight sends the girls off to bed. She sits then in the dimly lit room, the smoke of a cigarette wreathing her small, well-shaped head. Her face in the shadows is pretty, yet somehow old and sad. I feel an anger as I watch her, an anger at the rebel and what earthlings have endured at his hands. I long to write across the sky the simple solution to their predicament. Jesus Christ, Prince of the universe, is yours, planet Earth. Yours to heal your sickness, comfort your loneliness, and make you whole again. Lift up your heads, laugh and dance and sing. Take the gift he's bought for you at such a cost and give him your love in return. But I know, even as I compose my celestial bulletin, eyes all dotted with stars, that men would barely lift their eyes to read, nor would they believe. They've seen Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Black Hole, so what else is new? Sunlight stubs her cigarette into the ashtray and dozes into her chair. Only a streetlight nudges the darkness about her, a darkness deeper than she knows. I look across the holy city to the throne where the prince and his father can be seen together. There is light aplenty there, light enough to turn puny earth into a blazing sun. If it's not light that humans need so much as love, if they only knew that the prince bathes their small sphere constantly in his love, I see the same loneliness in his eyes as he observes them as I saw in Sunlight's tonight. And I begin to understand a little of his sorrow. They need each other, those earthlings and the prince. They are bound together in some mysterious way beyond my understanding. Maybe it happened at the cross, or maybe before in the stable in Bethlehem, or just when he walked their roads, ate at their tables, and touched their sick. Strangely, he is no less ours because he is theirs, but they are infinitely more ours because they are his. And on that confusing observation, I close my journal for the night. 1 week has passed, and I know a great deal more about Sunlight than when I closed this journal last Tuesday. She works in cosmetics at Sibley's downtown store, looking very chic and professional, as do most of her fellow workers there. Conscientious. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. She gives each customer courteous attention, yet an anger festers within. Her conversation with her fellow workers is witty and intelligent, but often cynical. She is shattered at the very core of her being, as are many earthlings, but she functions on the residues of that magnificent resiliency with which the prince endowed man at the beginning. Sunlight forces her doubts and fears into the far corners of her mind, where unfortunately they smolder. Sometimes irritation even tinges her love for the children, because she has to be both mother and father to them. She envies what she interprets as their carefree existence. They aren't, of course, carefree. The bitterness between their parents has washed over them until already their spontaneity has succumbed to a puzzled, painful acceptance of life. I am beginning to realize that my journal cannot be the simple telling of Sunlight's story, for so interwoven are Earthlings' lives. I shall find myself of necessity including others in my study, but only as I must to record every facet of Sunlight's experience. It pains me when she is harsh with her children. They seem so defenseless, though the little one is strong-willed and stands her ground. If only I could connect Sunlight with the prince. That, however, is Earth's friend's work, and though his presence is ever about her, she senses no need of his help. It is frustrating to be limited to watching. I have new respect for the work of the recording angels. What sadness they must have endured over the years as they watched millions of individuals. Stop, bro. As they've watched millions of individuals live out their days with no interest in heaven's concerns for them, only to die fearful and alone, but that must not be Sunlight's fate. Followers of the prince dwell all over her city. Surely one of them will seek her out and tell her of him. It is Saturday night. For some reason, Earthlings experience a kind of madness on Saturday night. Even the most docile of them go out to eat or settle about the television in their homes with bowls of popcorn. But the restless ones, what they don't resort to quiet their loneliness. The cities teem with ugliness. Sunlight is disco dancing with a friend, a young man she has known since childhood, a rather decent young man, all things considered. He takes her dancing and tries to fill the gaps in her life with his friendship. I watch them now, as best I can through the smoky haze. She is like an autumn leaf in her swirling red dress, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Both she and her friend, whom she calls Michael, are caught up in the frenzy of the dance, an almost hypnotic blend of light and sound and movement, far removed from the peaceful land in which I dwell. Sometimes on Saturday nights I despair that men will never find the prince, that when he returns to bring them home, he will discover that no one awaits him. But of course... But of course, that will not happen. I am only discouraged because it sometimes seems the planet Earth is ablaze with its own destruction. Later in the car, they talk, Sunlight and Michael. The flush of excitement has subsided, and she is pale and tired, almost as though her soft red dress is consuming her delicacy, like flames nibbling at a paper flower. Sunlight, how come we had to leave early? I'd like to dance forever. Michael, why? Sunlight, because when I'm dancing, especially if I've had a few drinks, I can forget. I don't worry about the girls. I don't think about Jim. I don't remember all those picky middle-class matrons at the store. I forget how eerie the apartment gets after the girls go to bed at night. I forget how afraid I am of all the years ahead. What if I get sick and I can't pay the rent? What if the girls become wild teenagers and I can't handle them? What if I can never love anyone again, or no one ever loves me? See why I like to dance, Michael? Michael, you know that I won't let any of that ever happen to you. Sunlight, I suppose you're going to stay single all your life just in case I stub my toe, she laughs wryly. Michael smiling, I'll be here tomorrow and the next day. Isn't that good enough for now? Sunlight, I see the years just unrolling ahead of me, dull and empty. Her cigarette glows in the red darkness. And glows red in the darkness. And then death. I'm scared of death, Michael, even more scared than I am of life. Michael, those are long thoughts for a young woman, Maggie. You need your rest. That's why I brought you home early tonight. When you get up tomorrow, you'll find death will keep his distance. Sunlight, sometimes he walks to work with me, but forget it. Thanks for everything. Next Saturday night, you get yourself a carefree chick who's not wallowing in self-pity. If it weren't so ironic coming from me, I'd even go so far as to suggest that you get married. Michael thoughtfully, I've considered it. He walks her to the door of her apartment, promises to call, and drives the babysitter home. Sunlight turns out the lights, gets into her robe, and sits a long time looking out across the lighted city. The ashtray is full when she finally draws the drapes and goes to bed. I have wondered much about Sunlight's ex-husband. Today, he came to take the girls on an outing. Overjoyed, they threw themselves into his arms with enthusiasm I had not seen in them before. I decided he could not be all that bad. In fact, I have yet to discover an earthling who is all that bad. A short, athletic-appearing young man, he was a little uneasy in his visitor's role. He made light chit-chat with the children as they slipped into their coats, even trying to draw sunlight into the conversation. But she would have none of it. Sometimes I think I'd chosen most inappropriate name for her. But she does have reason to be hurt, and her hurt erupts as fierce hostility. After he had gone, she flew into a fit of house cleaning where none was really needed. A tidy housekeeper, she has little upon which to vent her frustrations in time of need. I noted as she scoured the bathroom tile, the tears ran down her cheeks, though she made not a sound. Now he has brought them home, his daughters, disheveled and rosy from a canoe trip in the Genesee River. A young woman whom I'm assuming is his new wife waits outside in the car. I'm sure he can tell Sunlight has been crying, though she barely acknowledges his presence. Jennifer and Carol bubble over with the adventures of the day, but Sunlight shoos them off to the tub. Jim attempts to break through her defense. Jim, can't we be friends, Meg, at least for the sake of the girls? Sorry, I'll repeat that. Jim says, can't we be friends, Meg, at least for the sake of the girls? Sunlight, your concerns amaze me. You haven't even seen them in a month. Jim, it's not always easy. Marie often makes plans for the weekends in which two little girls just don't fit. Sunlight, I'll bet she does. Jim, other people get divorces and go on being friends. Why must you be so difficult? I know that the alimony's not a lot, but it's the best I can do at the moment. I didn't set out to fall in love with someone else. It just happened. I'm sorry, Meg. I really am. I've told you that 100 times. Sunlight, please go, Jim. You can come for the kids anytime, but don't ask me to listen to your theatrics afterwards. And don't keep Cinderella waiting. She might turn into a pumpkin or whatever. Jim grinning. I still like your wit, even when it's sticking to my back. Good night, Meg. The prince came by just now and asked me how I was getting along with my special project. When I told him, he smiled and was quiet for a moment. And then he said, so you call her Sunlight. That is good. Write your story well, Jared. And in the writing, you will learn much. Now, what did he mean by that? But he knew her instantly by my description. He knows each earthling as if there were no other. I fear the joys of this land will mean nothing to him until it brings them home. Okay, guys, so that was the first chapter of the book, Project Sunlight. Ro, can you stop that, please? Thank you. And like I said, I'm going to continue on with this book. I hope that the background noise wasn't too distracting for everybody. I'm sorry. I've tried to read it when I can. It's difficult for me sometimes to get quiet. So, I will continue on with chapter 2 next time. And I hope you guys join me for this book. God bless everybody.